Hello, BookTube, and welcome to episode 5 of Hours in My Library. This week we return to London with Haunted London. It's a nice embossed, the gold embossed book of the Temple Bar, 1761, and that's all raised, and the green decoration here at top and bottom is raised as well. And it's carried on into the spine, which is a bit faded, but that there is a pillory. It's Titus Gates in the pillory, and there's no date. There might be date in the text, but there is the etching that is from. And this was published by let's get here. Chatto and Windus in Piccadilly, 1880. It's written by Walter Thornbury, edited by Edward Walford, M.A., and illustrated by F.W. Fairholt, Fellow of the Society of Antiquaries, or it could be Architects, but I think it's Antiquaries, FSA. And again, this is Temple Bar, 1861, but it's the etching on the title page. There's foxing throughout. It was originally published in 1865, so this is a bit of a later printing. It doesn't say what printing it is in here. And Thornbury, he died quite young. He lived from 1828 to 1876, I think it is, 1876. And he died of exhaustion, apparently. He was a writer. He wrote poetry, novels, and topographical sketches, and that's what this is. And I showed this on Instagram a few weeks ago. I embellished a little bit, saying it's ghosts. It's not so much ghosts. It's haunting of the haunted London of its past, London's past. And he has an interesting paragraph in the preface here I'd like to read. Well, he says here, in short, this London of the present haunted by the memories of the past. But then he goes on to say, if an alderman of the last century could rise from his sleep, he would shudder to see the scars and wounds from which London is now suffering. Viaducts stalk over our chief roads. Great square tubes of iron lie heavy as nightmares on the breast of Ludgate Hill. In Finsbury and Blackfriars there are now to be seen yawning chasms as large and ghastly as any that breaching cannon ever effected in the walls of a besieged city. On every hand, legendary houses, great men's birthplaces, the haunts of poets, the scenes of martyrdoms and the battlefields of old factions heave and totter around us. The tombs of great men, in the chinks of which the nettles have grown undisturbed ever since the Great Fire, are now being uprooted. Milton's house has become part of the Punch office. That's Punch magazine. A printing machine clanks where Chatterton was buried. Almost every monument, some building worthy of record, is shattered by the pickaxes of ruthless laborers. The noise of falling houses and uprooted streets, even now in my ears, tell me how busily time the destroyer and the improver is working. Erasing tombstones, blotting out names on street doors, battering down narrow thoroughfares, and effacing one by one the memories of the good, the bad, the illustrious, and the infamous. And I find that interesting because he's writing this in the 1870s. When he wrote the book, and he's talking about the 18th century. So the things that were knocked down and built in their place were then a century later being knocked down as well. So it's, as he says, time the destroyer and and the improver is working for good or ill. And it's illustrated throughout with etchings. He does, it's a chatty type thing. He tells the stories, and he doesn't say that everything's truthful in here, but he quotes from the sources whether they're true or not. And it's got little etchings like this throughout that are just fabulous. And here's a couple more. My copy is a bit rough. It's got foxing throughout. It's got a nice, an interesting book plate on it, and it says FRAS period H Hind, Wolverhampton. Now, I believe the FRAS is short for Francis. Otherwise, it could be Fellow of the Royal Astronomical Society, but I don't think that's what it is, because it would be at the end of the name. So it is. There's foxing on the page edges, but it's just a beautiful book, and it's part of my London collection. And you can see where he's got poetry throughout. I like these old books because most of them, they all had bits of poetry in them. If they were books about London or other places, and just as I say, chock full of nice etchings throughout the text. So there we go. That is episode 5 of Hours in My Library, and we'll be back next week with another episode. Thank you, BookTube.